Attention everybody, the views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. Today's topic, fantasy of strategic community planning. That's a really long title.
Hey, you know what? It's fun though.
Good morning! Coming to you live from Acts Media Group headquarters here in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. Well, that smells good. It's the Morning Drive with Matt and Jay with your hosts, Matt and Jay!
And the valley is too wide.
Oh, what am I doing?
I don't know. What are you doing, Jay?
I was distracted.
That happens a lot to all of us.
I thought this is how it would always be. 2, 3, but that's all change.
All right.
That's all change.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Morning Drive with Matt and Jay. My name is Matt.
My name is Jay.
And we're glad to have everybody on board with us today. Now, it is Thursday, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So, today's topic is a long one.
Yeah.
But it's I find it very interesting.
It was kind of a fantasy, you know, what would you do?
What would you do if you had...
An apocalyptic fantasy.
An apocalyptic...
Ooh, that would have been a better title. Apocalyptic fantasy.
We don't want to be seen. We're not inciting fear. This is just
No.
like a conversation that came up between us. What if
But
the shift...
fantasy.
You know, that's an acronym for
Oh,
the
yeah.
stuff hits the fan.
Yeah.
You know, what would you do?
It's a
I
good
mean,
question.
we'd like to think about what we would do. You know, if you're in a position where you can talk to your neighbors and make sure that there's a plan in motion. You know, things like that. And I was joking about, wouldn't it be cool to do like that one guy did and bury like 30 buses in the ground and make an underground bunker? And you're
Yeah.
like, well, there's a couple of things you got to take into account. You can't just bury them and just be like, okay, here we are. There are things like air ventilation and things like that. Anyways.
Yeah. And siege.
Well, we just got kicked off of Facebook.
Did we really?
Looks like it. Oh, we're back on. Perhaps I should change the title. I think I might change the title.
Why?
Well, you know,
We're back on. They haven't. Maybe they're just watching.
maybe they're like, hey,
Maybe they're one of our. Hey, you know what? Maybe they're one of our
viewers.
fans,
huh?
our viewers.
Maybe we got an algorithmic
We can
fan.
hope. We can hope for the best, right?
Yeah. I mean, we're not doing this because we're not.
Well, we're trying to be interesting and entertaining and informative, and we're trying to do all those things because we're a legitimate media source.
Yeah.
We actually have the little things that say that we can come here because we're an essential. We are considered an essential as a media group.
All right. Sorry about that.
We are considered an essential.
I guess we won't be calling to get the news today because I don't know what's going on with this channel. I got to fix it. Anyways, everything sounds a lot better now already.
Yeah, I wonder. I'll see. I'm only getting the YouTube version.
Well, let me go on here and see.
All right, here we go. I'm at Axe.
Are you?
I'm just gonna get it from there.
That's the best way to go.
It is.
Go to Axe Media Group on Facebook.
There we go.
Oh, there
Now
it
I'm
is.
there.
We already got quite a few people watching us.
Yeah. So what we were talking about is, you were talking about the guy who's burying the buses, and I thought, well, hey, don't forget the tower.
And I'm like, what tower?
Well, because if you're not watching,
There's a lookout tower. Has to be a lookout tower.
there has to be a lookout tower. You need high ground so that you can see who's coming and what people around you are up to. Of course,
All right.
that will also reveal your position. But at the same time, look, when we talk about this kind of stuff, if the
Steve.
TF, whatever that's called, really does happen, if that ever really did happen, which it's not going to happen now. I mean,
No, but it's
everybody's
just like,
working together right now to make this work and to recover. Well, first,
everybody's surprised we're early today.
everybody's working right now to be prepared for what's coming that we're not really sure of. Which is first of all the disease, second of all the economy. Because the disease is where we're trying to protect our loved ones. right? We want to
Yeah.
not get sick. We don't want our loved ones to get sick.
We are no longer broadband, Jeremiah. We are actually, what do you call that?
DHL,
No,
Or-
no, we're not DSL either. We are fiber optic.
fiber optic.
We're all
Yeah.
fiber optic. Good morning, fellas. Just popping in. God bless your day. Thank you, Linda Fleetwood. Good morning, Jeremiah Humans, Steve Schultz, Larry Melton, Steve Mickey Mac McAllister. He says, "Hey, both Steve says you're early. Hey, you're early today
Yeah.
because it was before 8:01 or 8:03.
Right.
I
Did
don't
you
know.
change the title?
No, it's still the same. But it is probably true. I mean, the internet is probably getting overrun because there's so many people at home and they don't have anything else to do but watch movies, stream them, doing homework.
Why would you be concerned about SH whatever it is, or the apocalyptic breakdown of society? Why would you be concerned about that? Well, because some people are going to go mad, insane, crazy. Some people are going to try to
No, we're not afraid of zombies.
hoard resources and take them from everybody so that they're now in their possession, so that they have everything and somebody else. Those are the real concerns about what are we going to do if things break down, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this topic is about.
And
It's a fantasy.
never.
It's a fantasy.
Can you turn that bottle? There we go. That way we're not advertising for them.
Can you turn that one?
Anyways,
So we were talking about burying buses. We were talking about building a tower. And we were talking about
about-
what we would do, what the people inside of it would do to protect themselves and to supply themselves and all of that. And so I was just trying to come up with ideas about how we would manage those things, because when you start to build a community in a circumstance like that, you're going to need people who are specialized in certain things and capable of doing certain things to protect yourselves and to supply yourselves and to make sure that life is sustainable, that you can
Yeah.
sustain yourselves.
well, I mean, you gotta think about things like sewers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Waste management.
Waste
Otherwise,
management.
everyone's going to die of,
Waste treatment.
the plague.
Waste treatment, right?
Yeah.
And it has to be in the correct proportions according to your population, which
Yeah.
you would want to grow. Because what
Yeah.
we would want is for everybody to be able to model something and to grow a community that's successful and healthy and safe, and with principles that would spread in their theology. That with keeping to principles that would be admirable and desirable to anybody else that came upon it. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So you'd want people to say, "I want to be part of that community."
Or we could teach them to do the same thing in their area.
Right, and so when it grows to a certain proportion and there's not enough resources, you would want people to be equipped to break off and start something somewhere else, or to go to a place that's struggling, that is maybe missing some principal ideas that would help them succeed as a community.
Right.
So you'd want to be able to do that, because first thing is that if things broke down, the first thing it would be chaos,
Yeah,
right?
Steve
Everybody
planted some garden in it yesterday, he said.
everybody trying to acquire resources. Everybody trying to acquire a storehouse of resources that would sustain them for as long a foreseeable period of time as possible.
Yeah.
They would want to most importantly, take care of and sustain those who are closest to them.
Right.
Their friends and their family. Right?
Yep.
And of course you'd want it to grow, because otherwise you're always on a defensive or an offensive way. You'd want to be able, you know what I mean? You'd want to have all the resources so that you didn't need or lack for anything. But to introduce certain principles of community would mean that then people would be a little more cautious about each other because of what had happened. But at the same time, they would have needs, and that's why specializing and if you have an excess and you come across another community that's set up and thriving
Morning,
and has
Kevin
good
Saxon.
principles,
I never did get back to you yesterday. I'm so sorry, buddy.
you might have something that you could share with them because you have an excess, and they might have something that they could share with you because they have an excess, and so now you're trading again.
Right. And the thing is,
But you'd also want to be able to protect yourself against those who had bad intentions.
Linda says, "I'll move."
Yeah, where to though?
Yeah.
You want to move to a community where you're going to feel safe, and
Right.
you're going to feel valuable, and you're going to feel like
And you're
can
not going to be mistreated.
You're going to feel loved and valued as a person, but also where there's going to be enough going on in close proximity to you as a community where you can find a niche, a place where you might have a talent and be able to contribute maybe in a higher way
Yeah.
and be valued, as a leader or a teacher or as somebody who's just skilled in an area that can benefit everybody, and so those are things that we were talking about and thinking about. You'd want people to be able to take shifts, because when you get so many people in such close proximity with such little resource and having to set up a protective sort of boundary so that those roving maniacs aren't going to try to come and take everything,
Right.
rape and pillage, which is what happens in those kinds of situations.
Yeah.
You would want to be able to protect yourself against that, everybody to feel safe and be able to be successful at it and know that there's a future, in the foreseeable future, we have success here.
Now, we've all seen movies like
of this kind of thing. Yeah.
like The Postman.
Yeah.
And
Which was amazing.
that was an amazing movie. Who plays in that? Dennis? No, that's not Charlton Heston.
Oh, the guy who played in Dances with Wolves.
Yeah. My brain just left it.
Kevin Costner.
Yes. And he's played in some really cool movies.
Yeah.
I mean,
apocalyptic type movie.
yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of those things. And people think, oh, well, I mean, yeah, of course, we're calling it the fantasy of strategic community planning. Because
Yeah.
at this point, it's a fantasy. We're not.
It's not
we
going to
don't-
come to this.
It's not going to come to that, folks. The government does not want us to.
Well, really, it's the people. The
And the
government's
people.
having to go to leaders of corporations who have all of these infrastructures already ready to switch over to things that are necessary
Yeah.
to get us through that necessary time.
Yeah.
And they're already talking and having to have some foresight and see into the future to see to predict what's going to go wrong next, because they know that with an economy that's collapsing on itself, and it's a world economy,
Yeah.
that there's going to be a lot of shortages, and that they won't be able to just import or export them.
Right.
And there may not be such good travel because mass transit could shut down.
Thanks to where you live, they hooked me up with a bucket of survival food,
Yeah, cool.
which had I think 257 servings or something in it.
Yeah, that will last somehow. How many years?
It's got a
50
25-year
years or
shelf life.
25-year shelf life.
Um,
Pretty cool.
and then a 5-gallon bucket full of
For
dried
one
beans.
person.
Yeah, for one person.
Yeah.
And then you can get things like those survival tabs.
I think in a community sense. I don't think of my own stuff.
Right,
I
right.
don't want to survive alone. Look, I am by nature. I want a recluse. If I'm left alone, I will
Julie.
just withdraw into a room, and that's just easy for me.
Yeah, and we've heard
But
a lot
I
of.
want community.
There's sensationalist news sources on Facebook that are saying that people are going to be required to put chips in their hands and crap like that.
Right.
That's sensationalism.
It may happen though. We don't know.
We
what
don't know,
the
but
future holds.
at this point, I mean, I know I'm not going to let them put a chip in my hand.
Right.
I
That
mean-
would be the mark of the beast.
Yeah,
that
but-
would be too close to a reality.
Julie, you came in on a real
that
heavy
looks
topic
like-
of conversation. Linda says the movie The Purge. Laugh out loud.
Well,
I
see
know a
what
lady
I'm-
who believes that is going to happen. She has curtains on her windows.
So
No
in the
joke.
event of the apocalypse, the way I would try to contribute to a community is to, I would think that we would want to have specialized groups, right? You would want to have specialties. So you got this bunker underground, yeah, you got this tower, right? But then you need people to man the tower. You need people to man the bunker. You need people who can, do the watch and make sure what's going on close around to the compound and to know what's happening close to you. That's not part of the community that you're serving. Right. But then also they can only do that for so long before they fall asleep and they're not watching anymore. So you'd want to divide it up into shifts. People would be responsible for taking sections of their time each day to make sure that their hygiene was good, to make sure that their home was good, that they're not encroaching on other people's space, because space would be a premium. You'd want to make sure that they're eating properly and well so that they can be healthy and fit and, be able to manage their contribution and be able to do it to the best of their ability. You'd want to make sure that all these things were figured out, but also you would want people, so everybody would have to be involved. So everybody would have to have some skill and proficiency at the watch. Some would have to be able to go out further out away to have reconnaissance to see what's going on in the wider world and how things are changing and developing around. Maybe find people to trade with, because you might have some excesses and some deficiencies where somebody else may have an excess in your deficiency, and you could do some trading and rebuild a community. And we're talking about not real things now. Remember, this is fantasy, but it's kind of interesting to think about. What would you do, right?
Right.
Because right now we're so specialized that we don't have any particular skill as a community that could contribute to an entire community rebuilding itself.
I think. Let me find out. Let's see. Nehemiah.
Kicked off yet?
No, not yet. One thing I wanted to look for is, I don't know how you spell Nehemiah.
And we were talking about like 6 hours of watch, and then 6 hours of doing your laundry and taking your showers and taking care of your feet and taking care of your room and cleaning it and your little bunk space or whatever it would be. And then you'd have 6 hours of maybe some leisure time where you're not sleeping but you're not working. You're being part of the community in a relational type of a way. And then you'd have your 6 hours of sleep, and you'd do that shift always on watch for a week or something like that, right? So now you're building skills, you're understanding better what your particular responsibility is in that. Well, then the next week of the month, you would be on reconnaissance. So you'd be out looking a little further away at more the wider world, seeing what's there, finding out what kind of resources you have around you, how things and resources are moving, what groups of people are maybe hostile, which ones are friendly, which ones are successful, which ones are struggling. So you'd know what's happening in the wider world a little further out and away from your community.
All right, so read the book of Nehemiah. And it talks about what they had to do as a community to not only rebuild the walls of Jerusalem and the temple, but also they had to protect themselves because people were trying to stop the building of the walls.
Right.
And so, I mean, you can look in there to see, let's see here where it says, and it came to pass.
But essentially what you want is for the wall to become obsolete, to be there and to be useful in the event of its necessity, which will reoccur. But what you want is the principles of community and friendship and trade and thriving in my opinion, the most valuable thing in our lives is each other. Yeah. And so if the principles of a community aren't about everybody surviving and thriving and being part of a community where they can be involved with each other, be valued by each other, be able to contribute to each other in almost every way, but then have a way to find something that they're really talented at above others, so they could be honored and respected, right? And everybody kind of wants that for themselves. More importantly than just survival. If you don't have those things, survival is kind of not so great anyway, right?
Right. I'm catching up on our comments here just real quick, because I was looking up where it talked about the rebuilding of the temple in Nehemiah, and there's a
Exactly, Larry. 6 hours of pulling weeds out of the green beans, and then maybe planting, planting other crops and where you're going
Morning,
to put
Susan
them,
Burrows.
how you're going to bring in water, how you're going to conserve
irrigation,
those things.
yeah, the irrigation and plumbing.
How you're going to conserve those things, but also to protect those things. You can easily poison
Julie
water.
says, "Hey, I'm a quick learner and get things done." Laugh out loud.
Right, because a bunker in the ground is something you can just take a T-shirt and plug the air hole and stand there and wait for
Or
them to
put
either
a hose and fill
suffocate
it
or
with smoke.
yeah, and then you're just waiting for the people inside to suffocate so you can take all of their supplies or come out.
Yeah.
And then what? You know
Again,
what I mean?
this is
It's
fantasy.
fantasy, yes.
Fantasy of strategic community planning. We're not saying that this is going to happen.
But community being the key. We don't
Working
want this
together.
apocalyptic, everybody, these zombies trying to kill and take you, and you are the resource. You know what I mean? They're going to eat you and drink your blood, And really, that,
Gonna happen.
right.
Sorry,
but but it is also a metaphor of the reality when there's desperation.
Yeah.
That's why people steal.
Yeah.
But a community that would see the reality of the potential for hostilities and for raping and pillaging, because there are, believe me, now look, I don't know if you know this, but there are truly evil people out there.
Oh yeah.
With the breakdown of society, we would perceive them as unstoppable when it comes to just protecting yourself. You find yourself out on the street and you've got a group of sociopaths and psychopaths who have banded together to rape and pillage and take what they want. That would be a powerful force of people. And
Yeah.
they wouldn't have any true contribution to make. What they do is they would kill and steal and destroy what people who did contribute have done, take their resources. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is fantasy, but at the same time, when we talk about fantasy, we're really talking about what could happen or would happen if. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Morning, Johnny Rooster. He says, "It's growing."
So there would also have to be justice and a court system. You got somebody lazy who's fallen asleep on watch. There's going to have to be some sort of discipline,
Yeah. Or demotion.
or demotion, right? Because you have to have somebody on watch, or you'd have to have maybe to pair people up. Somebody who has a tendency to fall asleep on watch with somebody who tends to be vigilant,
Right.
so that people could, one, have an example, somebody to admire and look up to, but you'd also still have to have a form of discipline, because the guy who's vigilant has to be training and holding the other person accountable,
Yeah.
because still
This is all pretty interesting
is
to me.
behind him, his back has got to be watched, right?
Yeah.
And if the guy back there's falling asleep, he's useless.
Did you notice
himself,
that
no
on
matter how
the
vigilant he
armor
is.
of God? Plus, we need a chaplain.
Mm-hmm.
You need chaplains, a place to have church.
Doctors,
I mean, that right there is just as much of a requirement for me, in my opinion, as a hospital.
faith,
Yeah.
and part of community and accountability, that you don't necessarily have to go before a court, but the court is that God is watching and you will be judged.
Yeah.
But most importantly, community and vitality.
Yeah.
People have we'd want to find out how every person, no matter what we perceive their value to be on the surface, that we could dig deep and find that there is a greater value inside, which I think is the fundamental part of it, is that God values us ultimately. He gave his son for us, right? And so in the event of some sort of apocalyptic thing where we had to rebuild communities, rebuild resource acquisitions to supply and, rebuild the infrastructure so that we could all survive well and not
Yeah.
go through things like the bubonic plague again.
Yeah, 'cause that stuff sucked.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I wasn't alive for that.
And there are many parts to a community that are all vital. And I think more importantly, though, that everyone,
Larry says I can feed the watchmen while they guard the food.
that too, right. But I don't think people, at least at the beginning, because we would be lacking so many skilled people, that we would have to have a rotation. Like, so one person would be good at, so first, like watch food acquisition, all those things. You'd have to have people specializing, but you'd have to rotate people through all of those things. For
Find out which one is better at it.
right, because somebody may have a talent for it, and if they don't ever try it, they won't ever know if they have a talent for it. But also, so people can understand the responsibility of those who do the things that they don't do. We would want them to be able to get their hands dirty and do it, so they could understand what is being provided them by somebody else's hand, by somebody else's labor, so that we could have value for each other,
Yeah.
And that's why I think rotate people through all the skills so that people are pretty much jacks of all trades and masters of none. But then those who emerge talented, right? Emerge with true talents for any specific trade or any specific need for the community, that they would then be elevated to a position of a teacher.
Right.
But still being rotated through so they could always, one, get a break, two, be able to teach other people to do it, whether they have a talent for it or not. Their talent in being able to do it well, and learn about it can also be taught so that when they're not there, somebody else can do it well. Because here's the thing, in an apocalyptic fantasy, apocalyptic fantasy, there's tons of threat.
Yeah.
And there's tons of loss. Look, we lose people. People get sick. People get injured. There's people who are evil, who would harm or kill. And when we lose somebody who has that talent or skill, we would need somebody to be able to take that position and be able to adequately fill that position, right? That's why I think everyone should get a little taste of every kind of skill that is necessary to make a community work, so that we don't devalue each other anymore.
Right.
See, in my work as a cashier, I see a lot of homeless people, and I want to tell you, people think, there are people who never even spent a minute talking to one of them. Not only that, but what about several minutes, several times, speaking to somebody who's homeless and contributing? Some people think, they throw their change on the ground and jokingly say stuff like, oh, well, I helped the homeless today, by shaming them so that they have to pick up what they need off the ground. That's
horrible.
That's a horrible attitude. But here's the thing. One of the greatest things that God gave us, one of the most valuable things throughout all of humanity, is our ability to have mercy, to have grace, and to have compassion. And one thing the homeless provide, and I've seen it, is an opportunity for somebody to have compassion.
Yeah.
And to contribute to somebody who has less than they do.
Right.
And that is one way that I see that the homeless are very, very valuable, because you might see somebody who is just hateful to everyone, who hates people. And then the next moment you see somebody who values somebody just because they are alive.
Yeah.
And gives to them from themselves and sacrifices something they really can't afford to sacrifice, trusting that God will bless them for it. And God does. You can see in that very moment a person benefits from giving to somebody who is in need.
Yeah.
It doesn't take an amount of time for God to bless them. They are blessed almost immediately. They are blessed immediately before they even give it sometimes.
Yeah.
So give cheerfully. So those are things that
the blessing may not be that like you get so much per donation. You know what I mean? It's
right. Oh yeah.
The blessing is the feeling you get knowing that you've helped your fellow man.
Yeah.
It says whenever you give to the poor and the needy, don't tell anybody about it. Don't walk through sounding cymbals and gongs and so people will know that you did this.
Right.
It says when you give with your right hand, don't let your right hand know what the left hand is doing, or it says don't let one hand know what the other is doing.
Yeah. Because your blessings are in heaven.
Right. That's where the true blessings are.
Yeah.
So.
And those are vital things in rebuilding a community. Otherwise, like I said, the walls just start to close in. And before you know it, each person has a giant wall built around them, and they feel safe inside. But then loneliness is worse than threat. Loneliness is worse than risk and fear.
Yeah.
Because then when you're alone, you're left to your thoughts and your fantasies, and you can build this fear of what's outside that wall. And then when you don't, and then as it turns out, what's outside that wall is a loving community that's caring for one another and contributing to each other and valuing each other.
Yeah.
And you're missing out because you're stuck behind this wall and you don't see anything, you don't hear anything, you don't know anything, and you're left to all of your fears by yourself. So when we think about apocalyptic things, we got to think, look what happens in all the apocalyptic movies. What happens? A community emerges.
Yeah.
And people contribute to one another and value one another.
Yep.
And then there's loss, right?
Yep. Most of the times you can't carry on a conversation with the homeless person. They don't have the attention span. That's what Larry says.
Yeah, and that's another thing is people can be, by spending a minute talking to somebody who's homeless, and not just 1 minute, but then the next day another minute, continue to spend a minute talking to a homeless person or different homeless people. I think a lot of times everyone should do that, because what you'll find is you don't want that person working with you. It wouldn't be successful.
Right.
Because there is something wrong there. And
Yeah.
they do have those needs, and they are not able to keep a job. And you'd find out that the majority of those are homeless are people who suffer from something that is only God could heal and change. And they need you.
Steve Samuels? Man, we got a lot of Steves watching today.
But they're not lazy people. Listen, survival is not easy in that situation. To
No,
be
that-
homeless and survive is not easy.
No.
It's very difficult, not just mentally, but physically as well.
Emotionally.
Emotionally, they're out there stand on a corner for 8 hours a day. Do it. And tell me it's not work. Why are they there?
Morning, Uncle Ray.
Because a lot of them, I would venture to say that most of them are not taking advantage of the public. They're unemployable.
Yeah.
And if you don't believe it, talk to one for a minute and give them a job. And then when you find out that they really are unemployable and working with them might be so difficult that you can't profit and you can't maintain it, and then tell me that handful of pocket change can't be put in their hand, and you can't say.
If I ever saw somebody actually, I mean, do people actually do that? Throw it on the ground?
Yeah, some people.
Really? I wouldn't be able to stand still.
It's few people.
Yeah.
But that's an attitude that a lot of people have, and there's few people who do that. They throw the change on the ground, thinking mockingly that they contributed to the homeless.
And also thinking I'll make them work for the money that they get.
Yeah, well, they just want to see them bend over and pick it up. They want to see them at their lowest. There's people who thrive off of that, and that's why I'm saying community is so important, and valuing each other like God values us.
That would sicken me to see something like that. If I saw something like that, I wouldn't be able to keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, that invokes feelings of, and I shouldn't be that way, because God says that we're supposed to love our enemies.
You can see the attitude in some people, and their hatred for the homeless, and their hatred for the less fortunate, and their love for themselves, and how they say, that person could just get a job or go to school and learn something. Well, you know what? Most of those people who are homeless for a reason. You go out and employ one if you think so. You go out and try to teach one of them. You go out and try to teach one of them something, and then you come back to me and tell me they're employable and teachable. There's a reason they're there, and it's because they suffer, and there's something they suffer from that you don't, and you don't understand, and you shouldn't say anything about it until you contribute to them or talk to them and find out who they are and what they're going through.
You know what I say?
Because it may be something you're not aware of.
Never judge somebody till you've walked a mile in their shoes.
Yep.
And then you can say whatever you want because they're a mile away from you and you have their shoes.
Yeah. Well, and in times like this, what businesses are closing down? Non-essential? How does it feel to find out you're non-essential? You're a highly paid, non-essential, unemployed person.
Yeah.
Then you want to tell me that the homeless are useless, they should get a job and learn something. Now all of a sudden you're really finding out what is essential and what's not, right?
Yeah.
And now you are unemployed. So
there's a ladybug walking around on your headphone.
Is there really?
Yeah.
Is that what I'm feeling itching me?
There it is.
Oh, there it is.
Boy,
He's hanging on.
Yeah. Sorry. That was really hard for me because we don't want to kill a ladybug.
No, I don't want to.
ladybugs are good for the plants.
So yeah,
Anyways.
community would be the most important thing in an apocalyptic thing, and valuing one another and learning from one another and teaching one another and having mercy and grace and kindness and compassion for those who suffer and are not capable. And yeah, maybe a lot of homeless people who don't have have never had an opportunity to learn what they could be skilled at, or
Right.
who never been in a position where their talents could emerge. And that's why I think rebuilding a community in this fantasy type world might be a way to solve some of those problems and to find out where we could, contribute more to each other and
Yeah.
value each other more.
So if you're enjoying this show and many others that we have throughout the week, please go online to axmediagroup.com. There's a way that you can contribute to our growth. You can partner up with us for as a monthly partner, or you can do a one-time donation just to help us out. We want to continue to grow our ministry. We are currently a worldwide ministry, and we have many programs, including but not limited to veterans programs, autism awareness programs and projects. The Kidney Fund is to help offset the cost of the copays and stuff of the anti-rejection medication, and so on and so forth.
Financial planning programs that are aired each week.
On Wednesday,
Yeah, we have what is that show on Monday?
on
Something
Monday.
to Celebrate.
No, that's Tuesday.
Tuesday, Something to Celebrate. It's a great show with a great attitude of cheer and fun.
Although they are currently quarantining.
Self-quarantining, but they bring on all kinds of authors and publishers and stuff like that, and it's interesting. What I love about Acts Ministry is it's so diverse in its inclusion, and so many people. Like, you could watch a show like Something to Celebrate, hear what an author went through and what brought them to the point where they decided to write a book, and then they have a book that's written and published and is being promoted live on Acts Media
Television,
Group, Acts Television Network, and they're thriving. They have it out there, and somebody may be inspired by that and say, you know what, I never tried to write a book, but I always wanted to put some stuff down on paper and see what people think of it. What my thoughts are and what my experience is, and see who might benefit from it or enjoy it, and they might try it. And that's what I like about it, is it's so diverse and inclusive that people can watch it and see so many different things where it's almost like being a kid in a candy store. You see a guy who's successful in finance and is good advice and understands the markets and how things work. Right now, his job right now is to figure out how to get through this and thrive afterwards. And
Yeah.
he will, because that's his job, and he's good at it. You can tune in to how many programs do we have now altogether?
We have our program, and not sorry. We have our program, which airs Monday through Friday, and then we have on Mondays we have Steve O'Mickey Mac with Brighter Living Live.
Yeah.
On Tuesdays, whenever everything kicks back into motion, we'll have something to celebrate.
And he now on Monday, Steve O'Mickmack usually, when he can, interviews an entertainer. His thing is entertainment and people who entertain, but also Christian.
Wednesday, we have the New Gold Standard with Tony Hammock, and he
Yep,
talks about
great show.
stocks and bonds and things like that.
Markets
And what the market is
banking.
doing and stuff like that. Really cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thursdays, which you'll see today, we have the Power Hour with Skylar Carter. And
Great man of faith.
Yep. And then Friday,
Very
we have
emotional show.
the Happy Hour with Dr. Paul and his wife, Nancy.
Yes, and what a master of media, Dr. Paul is. He is just a master of it, and
He's going to be having a lot of city government officials on.
Yes.
He called it the parade.
he's
Where they're
well
gonna give
connected, whether he
updates
knows it or not.
Updates of the coronavirus and things like that. Now, on Tuesdays, since they're self-quarantining, we're having a call-in show for the second hour of the day. It should be from 9 to 10
Which day?
Tuesdays,
Tuesdays. Okay.
like we did this Tuesday.
Okay.
So, but yeah, go online, check it out. You can read the Real News Review, and you can also donate to the cause and become partners with us in getting the message out there and serve where needed and do the right thing, and then send the message of unity in Christ through the Holy Spirit. Doesn't matter what religion you are, what creed you are.
You can keep social distancing and still interact with your community.
Yeah.
You can still display concern and love for one another. You can still contribute whatever talents you may have. You can contribute just your efforts, even if it's not a talent. When you see a need, something that you could do, do it. Keep the social distancing. Keep the hygiene guidelines that they've put out there for us all to keep. You know, there are people of high risk who see thousands of people a week in their business, and they're essential. They have to be there. They have to do it. They touch thousands, maybe even 10,000 items a week that somebody else has touched. And we don't want one of them to get sick. So be concerned for them. Keep the hygiene rules. You know, do the right thing, and so that they won't get sick. Because then imagine one of them getting sick. Now they're touching every item that everyone else purchases. They're touching all the surfaces that those people touch. And then how can that spread from there? So be careful.
Yeah. You may not be worried about yourself getting it or yourself living through it or dying through it. Think about the people that could die through it.
And who they're connected to,
And who they're
or
connected
might
to,
be
right.
connected to.
Like you see a medical worker and they look like they work at a nursing home, you know, stay away from them.
Yeah.
It's not that you're worried
You
about
know,
them having it.
anybody.
You just don't want them to get it.
Anybody. You're a
Anybody,
young
yeah.
person. You go to the store. You buy 5 items from another young person. And you're both sitting there saying, hey, you know what? We're young. We don't have to worry about it. Then you go home to your mom and dad and your grandparents.
Yeah.
You know?
Who do have to worry about it.
Who do have to worry about it.
So
And you don't know that. And there's no way you could know that. But
Right.
you should be assuming that.
you should be. So, but yeah, it's been a heavy day today.
Yeah. Fun, though.
Yeah.
Fantasy is fun. I think it's pretty cool.
And it's good, you know, to kind of have an idea of what you're going to need to do in case the worst case scenario, because that's what a lot of people, all the people that are panic buying and things like this, they are doing that because they are imagining
Apocalypse.
that they are in the fantasy of the end of the nation.
Yeah.
You know, all for one,
Apocalypse,
or just
chaos,
one for one,
mayhem.
not all for one for all.
Anarchy.
Yeah, pandemonium.
Yes. And war.
And war. So they've automatically just assumed that this is it. This is the end of the nation as we know it. Which I think that this is actually making our nation closer and stronger. And when
It's also making our nation sick.
absolutely,
Yep.
and
All of those things, though.
you know, we've slowed the spread, but
You
we
know,
haven't stopped the spread.
that's what a real community is, though, isn't it? It's suffering together.
Yeah,
It's thriving together.
helping each other
It's
out.
contributing to each other.
Yeah,
And without all of those things, there's no community, there's no nation, there's no country, and there's no world.
right.
And all of those fears we have of the apocalypse would be true.
I think America's doing a great job. I think
think so,
President
too.
Trump is doing a great job.
And so are you.
Yeah,
Because I'm seeing it at work. People are being more and more careful.
And they're
those
being
who
nicer.
are not, and those who are being careless are being confronted.
All right, so who did the cry face? Who did the cry face there? But yeah, I think.
I didn't see the cry face.
Some people just click a bunch and they accidentally click the.
You can also help us by liking and sharing these videos.
Yes,
Like and share. You can also help us by commenting, even if it's not live.
Add them to
Leave
your
a
story.
comment. Add them to your story. That actually, what I've noticed, adding it to your story is the most successful way to get views
yeah,
each
Yeah.
day.
because it's
The
a
days
quick.
I didn't do it, it was half what it was when I did.
Yep, got to do it. So,
Yep. So share it to your story. We really would appreciate that. We are trying to build a
Appreciate
media.
it.
We are trying to build a media group and a television network, a multicast.
successfully. We are successfully doing it.
Yep, and we're trying to bring to you the kinds of programs and the programming that you can benefit from, that you can enjoy and be entertained by, and that's what we're doing here at Axe, and we want to do that. We also have a lot of ministers who are actually working with individuals as well as communities to bring the word and the Spirit of God into people's lives and to have that spread, to bring people closer together, and to keep social distancing and
Yeah.
hygiene rules that allow them to continue to do it successfully and carefully.
Yep. And we've been ending our show a little bit early. I've made that decision so that, I mean, we're not ending yet. We still
We
have
got
at least
6 minutes.
6 minutes, give or take.
Tell
because-
us what you think about our fantasy.
Yeah. Isn't there a
You know?
song about that?
What part do you think you could play? Are
Yeah.
you a marksman? Could you man the tower?
Yeah.
And would you be able to see what's going on around you and be able
Or are
to
you going to be like Blinken from Robin Hood Men in Tights?
and to be
blind
able
guy?
to carefully interpret what you're seeing and not overreact or
I guess no one's
underreact?
coming.
Yeah. Would you be able to see it and say,
Yeah, you
according
can't
to
have
the
a hot guy.
reconnaissance guys, this bandana that's on this guy's head, this may be this group, and the reconnaissance people have told us they're dangerous. So to keep a closer eye, or this is a person
have a
from
hot
another
head on the
group that
turret
may
gun,
be
you know.
here to trade some jerky, and we don't got no meat. Those kind of things. Would you be capable of interpreting what you're seeing that way if you're manning the tower?
Yeah.
If you're manning the kitchen, would you be able to feed people something they would eat and thrive from?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that depends on who's doing the cooking.
Yeah.
Because some people know how to.
If you're breaking ground in the garden, you know what I mean? Could you have these beautiful plants that thrive and provide enough food? Could you raise animals?
Yeah.
And could you protect them from somebody who wants to come and take
Need
them?
people that know how to sew.
Would
Do you
you
know
be-
how to sew?
Yeah.
Who here knows how to sews?
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Could you do that for a community?
Think about what we could.
What
can
about
do.
when you're reconnaissance? Could you sneak around, see what's going on in the wider world that's over the horizon, and know what you're seeing? Be able to say, "There's resources that we
Let's
could
face it, I wouldn't
maybe
be able to hide
trade
behind a
for."
tree. I wouldn't be able to climb a tree either. So recon would not be my.
Keep a close eye on these people because they're hostile. They're probably going to kill each other, and they do have supplies that could
Steve
benefit the
Schultz
rest
says,
of us.
I think you guys ate
Yep.
pizza before you went to bed.
Yeah, maybe. But I'm just saying, think about it. Look, everybody has value. Everybody does.
Yeah.
And everybody could learn something new, even if you're not good at it. You could contribute in some way.
Yeah. And you could do this in the non-fantasy realm as well.
Yeah, do it today.
Yeah, you could help people. Mm-hmm. Just
There are
be
a lot
careful.
of people laid off.
Maintain your social distancing. I would recommend more than 6 feet.
I think 6 feet is okay. They said 6 feet, and they don't want this spreading all around.
So, what, I guess if you eat pizza before you go to bed, you have like wild dreams or something?
Right? Are you a nurse? Can you care for somebody who has gotten sick and not write them off as lost? You know what I mean? Could you
Right.
take somebody who's sick from the brink and bring them back?
Yeah. See these, and again, the fantasy of strategic community planning is the title of today's show.
Yeah.
We hope that you guys
Have
have been
fun with it.
entertained by this. Be thinking about that. We'll be on tomorrow.
How can you contribute to your community safely?
And you should be thinking about that anyways. How can
Yeah.
I contribute to this while maintaining a safe distance from others
And keeping good hygiene.
and keeping good hygiene?
Yeah.
Take a bath, wash your hands.
Because if I come over here and do this and walk away, everybody who comes near this is going to have to share what it is I left.
Right. Which hopefully is just, little handprint. That's it.
Hopefully it's no germs, right? The bad kind.
But,
anyway.
germs are kind of hidden from sight.
We love you. We love you and we care about you. This exercise was done not just out of fun, but also in reality. Look, we can all contribute a little bit more to our communities, and it doesn't even have to cost us much.
No.
It could be in just spreading a principal idea of community.
Yeah. Community. To community. To come together
Yes.
while staying apart.
Yeah, and contribute. Yeah, we can all do it. Let's do it. I want to see it.
So, but yeah, it looks like we got a couple minutes left.
Do we?
Yeah. We have like
Should we I don't know.
Go ahead and shut her down for now.
We could pray.
Yeah. Well, go for it, Jay.
Father in heaven, we thank you so much for giving your son for us, Lord. I know my own sins, and I thank you for the forgiveness that you provided through his sacrifice and the punishment that he took for me that I know I deserve. Lord, I could name many of my sins, and I know that they require a punishment. They require justice, and I thank you for being a just God and a righteous God, but even more importantly, for being one of compassion and love and mercy and grace. And thank you, for Lord, for imparting that all to me through your Son. And Jesus, we thank you so much for doing your Father's will, for coming here, for not partaking in all of the lusts of the flesh that we so easily are dragged away by, Lord. And we thank you for rejecting those things and for doing what it was you were sent here to do, and for doing it so well. We love you so much, and we thank you again. In Jesus' name we pray. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get out of here so we can sanitize the workstation. So thanks again for joining us on the morning drive today. Be sure and tune in next for the Power Hour with Skylar Carter. And tomorrow morning, same time, same channel, we'll be here. So until then, God bless you and keep you. We love you. My name is Matt.
My name is Jay.
And this has been
The Morning Drive.